Always learning and always improving. That's something we like to do here at Itaberco. Though it might not seem like a big deal, sometimes very small changes in either the method or the ingredients of a recipe can have a huge impact. To illustrate that, I'm using the Itaberco neutral cake mix. This is the Itaberco neutral cake mix, and I essentially just plopped everything into a bowl and mixed it until it was combined. Not very long at all, and then I baked it at 2 different temperatures. We can see that there's a bit of a denseness factor here for sure. That's because a lot of air hasn't been incorporated into it. And there's definitely a bit of color difference between 325 and 350. Next, I changed the method. Instead of just dumping everything into a bowl, I added the vegetable oil and the dry mix first and mixed that until I had a paste. Then I added the water the recipe called for, and I mixed that just until combined and baked at 350. So you can see we've got a little bit more volume than we do a little bit in the first one. It's a little bit more tender as well, so it's a nice improvement upon those steps. Next, I did another variation. In this instance, I added the vegetable oil and the dry, and I mixed it until I had a paste, much as I did with this cake. Then what I did when I added the water, I whipped it until the ribbon stage. So this is a play on a 2-stage mix method. Usually, when you're mixing cake mix for a long period of time, it can get really dry. But because I mixed the fat in first, I basically coated that dry with the fat, protecting it so I could mix it a lot longer. And this gave me more volume than we did in the previous experiment. We've got a really nice tight crumb as well. Then my next experiment was to do that exact same method, oil and dry, adding the water mixing to a ribbon stage, but this time I added twice as much vegetable oil as the recipe called for. So I got even more volume than I did in the previous version. I've got a really nice still tight crumb, but I have a much more moist and tender cake because of the additional fat. Now, all of these slices of cake here are also 5 days old. They've just been stored at room temperature, and they're still really, really tender. Now, cake mixes have a bit of a, negative connotation, so I tried another experiment. This is a recipe scratch made, so everything was measured, and this cake was essentially made from scratch. It's a 2-stage mix method, which is one of my favorite methods for making cake. Now again, mix has a bit of a negative connotation. The Itaberco neutral cake mix essentially is just the mise en place. It's sugar, flour, some egg powder, leaveners, and a little bit of solid vegetable fat and some salt. That's pretty much about it. So basically kind of mostly what's in here as well. So as an experiment, I used the dry mix, but in this time I used butter instead of vegetable oil that the recipe normally calls for, and I added additional sugar because sugar is tenderness. And instead of using water, I used 100% milk. I've got like a really nice crust on the top of that. I've got a good tight crumb here. It's quite moist, springs back, nice and tender. This also was basically mixed to the ribbon stage. Because I'm doing a play on a 2-stage mix method, I can get more volume here. Then in this next experiment, I did the same situation, dry mix, adding butter and sugar for fat, flavor, and tenderness. And in addition to the 100% milk, I added a little bit of water, since milk is not 100% water, and our original recipe of the cake mix calls for water. The other thing I did with this is I didn't whip it to the ribbon stage. I just did this in basically 3 30-second increments. So you can see I've got a really nice tight crumb here as well. Good spring back. I love the crust that I have on this. I also love the crust that I got on this one. And then finally, I did that, and I baked this at 350. And then finally, I did that exact same method, and I baked it at 325 to see if there was any difference. Usually when we have fattier cakes, I like to bake them at a bit of a lower temperature. So there's not much of a shock there. And you can see there's not a huge amount of difference between the 350 and the 325. So that also then allows for personal preference. So there you have it, just a few little examples of how small modifications to the method or the ingredients can have huge change and impact.